You know that old advice, right? Find your one passion and just stick with it forever. But what if that advice doesn't just feel wrong? What if it's actually creating the problem? Well, today we're going to dive into a totally different career strategy, one that's specifically for people who feel pulled in a dozen different directions all at once. So much of the conversation is about quitting too soon, right? But maybe that's not you. Maybe you look at your life and you see all these fascinating paths, and every single one feels like a real part of who you are. You're not afraid of putting in the work, you're just paralyzed by the choice itself. And this quote, man, it just nails that feeling, doesn't it? That feeling of having all this potential, but you're just stuck. And it's not because you lack ambition, it's because you have so much of it. It's the classic paradox. Being able to do anything often leads to doing nothing at all. Well, it turns out this feeling actually has a name. It's called the scanner's dilemma, and it's for anyone whose brain is constantly scanning the horizon, always finding something new and exciting to dive into. The thing is, society has a label for people like us, and, well, it's not always meant as a compliment. Yeah, they call you a dilettante, a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And the anxiety that comes with that label, it is huge. It can make you feel like your greatest strength, your boundless curiosity, is actually your biggest professional weakness. But you know what? That's an idea we are going to completely tear down today. So to do that, first we've got to understand that the whole world of work has changed. It's fundamentally different now. That old advice to specialize was designed for a totally different era, and if you try to cling to it today, it can be a recipe for some serious frustration. Okay, so some psychologists have this really cool way of looking at it. They call the old world a kind environment. Think of a golfer, right? The rules are fixed, you get rewarded for repetition, and you know immediately if you hit a good shot. But today, we live in a wicked environment. Now think of a firefighter. Every single situation is new. The rules are constantly changing, and what worked last time might not work this time. In this world, having broad skills isn't just nice, it's a massive advantage. Now, let's be super clear here. We absolutely need specialists. We need their deep, incredible knowledge. The problem isn't the specialist path itself. The problem is when it's sold to us as the only valid path, making anyone who doesn't fit that perfect mold feel like a total failure. All right, so if we're going to build a career that actually fits how our brains work, we need a whole new framework. So let's stop thinking about job titles for a second and start thinking about shapes. Trust me, this is a whole new way to see your own potential. So first up, you've got the eye-shaped person. This is our classic specialist we were just talking about. One single deep pillar of expertise. It's simple, it's focused, and it goes really, really deep. Then you have the opposite of that, the dash shape. And let's be honest, this is the fear of every scanner out there, being a mile wide and just an inch deep. You know a little bit about a lot of stuff, but you don't feel like you have a solid foundation in anything. And that feeling, it can be pretty unsettling. But there is another shape, and this one for a person with a ton of interests is the most powerful one of all, the M shape, the polymath. This model combines the best of both worlds. You get multiple deep pillars of expertise, all connected by this broad, horizontal bar of knowledge. You get depth and breadth. So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, imagine your first pillar is data science. You go deep. Your second is storytelling. You go deep there too. And your connector bar is your general interest in things like psychology and design. Suddenly, you are the rare person who can take super complex data and weave it into a story that a CEO can actually understand and act on. That is incredibly valuable. So what's the secret sauce here? What makes this M shape so effective? Well, it turns out there's this cognitive tool, kind of like a superpower, that lets you connect all these seemingly unrelated ideas. It's called far transfer. You see, specialists often use what's called near transfer, applying their skills to very similar problems. But a polymath excels at far transfer. This is that magical ability to see the fundamental pattern in one area and then apply it to solve a problem in a completely different one. So picture this, an architect who's obsessed with medieval cathedrals. She's studying how the flying buttresses distribute weight, and bam, suddenly she sees a brand new way to structure the user interface for a website. Or think about a biologist who deeply understands how a forest ecosystem works and then applies that exact same pattern to create a more resilient business strategy for her company. That right there is far transfer. It's the magic that happens when all your random interests finally collide. Okay, So this all sounds amazing in theory, but how in the world do you actually build an M-shaped life without getting completely overwhelmed? Let's get practical. Let's open up the toolkit. So there are really three core strategies to make this whole thing happen. First, something called serial mastery, focusing on one thing at a time. Second, the strategic day job, using your work for stability. And third, the external system, creating a place to capture all your ideas. All right, let's break down that first one, serial mastery. The key here is you absolutely cannot build all your pillars at once. If you try that, you're just going to end up right back in that dreaded dash shape. Instead, you pick one pillar and you commit to it for a season, let's say 6 to 18 months. You focus until you feel like you've mastered the core 80%. Then, and this part is crucial, you make a conscious choice to move on. This isn't quitting out of boredom. This is strategic quitting. The second strategy is all about reframing your job. You know, a lot of great polymaths, like Einstein working as a patent clerk, had jobs that gave them stability without sucking up all their brain power. A stable, lower-drain job isn't settling. It is a strategic asset. It leaves you with your most valuable resource, your mental energy to go explore and build those other pillars. So, with all this exploration happening, how do you keep track of all these ideas? Well, the brilliant sociologist Niklas Luhmann published over 70 books using a really simple system. He didn't try to keep it all in his head. No way. He built an external system for all his thoughts. Which brings us to our final strategy. You got to think of your mind as an idea factory, not a warehouse. It's for making ideas, not storing them. So you need an external system to offload everything. Use a simple tool, capture all those fleeting obsessions without any pressure, and just let the system hold on to the dots for you. You can connect them later. Okay, let's bring this all home. It is time for a major reframe. You are not a dabbler who lacks focus or grit. You are a potential polymath. Your brain is quite literally designed to be a bridge, built to connect completely different worlds of knowledge. And this is really the core of it all. Maybe you were never meant to be the master of just one thing. Maybe your true calling, your unique value to the world, is to be the person who can see the hidden connections between everything. That's a pretty powerful shift in perspective, isn't it? So I'm just going to leave you with this one question. You don't have to plan your entire M shape today. You don't even have to know what that second pillar is going to be. You just have to take that first exciting step. So, what will your first pillar be?